Chair Shaheen, thank you. And looks like Ranking Member Moran has left, but General Garland, I appreciate your staying for a little bit longer.
Of course.
And thank you for being here to testify today. I'd like to follow up on just a bit of your discourse with Senator Moran for a moment. Then I would like to follow up on something that you had discussed with Senator Shaheen. But with respect to Senator Moran and your conversation about working with your counterparts, the Attorney Generals in Mexico, I was last month with the Foreign Minister of Mexico. I went there to examine the situation on the ground. He was very clear as well that they would like to cooperate with us on law enforcement, sharing technology. They need help interdicting the fentanyl and the fentanyl precursors that are coming in from China. They have real problems there, and I applaud any efforts that you might undertake to work with their law enforcement to help them, and in particular, in border security. We went through that as well, and I think our technology and our capabilities could be helpful there. I'd like to turn to a different subject, though, and that gets back to the backlog that you're experiencing and perhaps the need for a new approach. And as Attorney General, your Executive Office for Immigration Review is charged with adjudicating claims for asylum. Human smugglers in Central America and Mexico, known as coyotes, are using our country's generous asylum laws as advertisements to draw people in to a very dangerous journey, a journey that often results in them losing their lives or becoming victims of crime. To this end, a recent Los Angeles Times report states that, quote, Mexican coyotes deposit migrants at the Rio Grande and instruct them to give themselves up to U.S. Border Patrol agents to claim asylum. This is what the coyotes are marketing. Go across the border, claim asylum. That is the secret password to get in. Asylum, fear. That seems to be the key to enter our country. General Garland, do you agree that human smugglers are taking advantage of our asylum system?
Well, I think there's no doubt that human smugglers and human traffickers are taking advantage of the people who they are smuggling. That's the reason we have just stood up a new task force, anti-human smuggling and anti-human trafficking. It will involve all the main agencies of, we call it Task Force Alpha, which just announced this week. Includes cooperation with Homeland Security. We're also putting people into the Northern Triangle countries where the smuggling originates to try to interdict it there. We're also introducing anti-corruption units to assist those countries in ending the corruption that often leads to people going to these smuggling entities. So
and no doubt the coyotes are taking advantage of the people of the people there, but are they taking advantage of our system, our generous system of asylum?
I don't. There are a lot of motivations for people coming out of the Northern Triangle, some of which we can fix and some of which we can't, and which we're trying very hard to fix. You know, we have an obligation under our law and under international law to provide refuge under the categories that Congress has set forth for us. And people are entitled to process to seek asylum under what Congress has authorized and required.
Well, the problems with our asylum laws that you're acknowledging, I think, are clear. I applaud your acknowledging that because we do need to address that, and I look forward to working to do that. But let's come back to the messaging that the coyotes are using to attract people into this dangerous process. Just this week in Guatemala, Vice President Harris sent a message to those that were perhaps contemplating coming to our country illegally: do not come. Is that a message that you can deliver, Attorney General, sitting right there, a message to these people: do not come to our country?
Look, I think that Vice President Harris has been very deeply involved in the kind of law enforcement and other requirements that we're looking to set up. She was instrumental in moving us to establish this joint task force to de-incentivize and to reduce traffic from the Northern Triangle countries down through Mexico and into the United States. So there are a lot of different messaging kind of issues involved, and some of them involve getting at the root causes of why people are leaving in those countries.
Well, messaging is one of these root causes, and I think it would be incredibly important to hear from our top law enforcement officer in America that these people should not come.
Well, I don't want people to make the very difficult and dangerous trip with coyotes that you're talking about. There's no doubt about that, that this leads to human tragedy.
Well, if these people enter our country illegally, are you willing to say that they will be deported?
So the question of asylum is one that our law permits them to make claims of asylum and to have an opportunity to show whether they have the grounds for it or not. If they're not entitled to asylum, then they're deported. I want to be clear, that element is for the Department of Homeland Security. It's not for the Justice Department. What we do is adjudicate the asylum claim.
Well, I'll come back and say this. According to the data on the Justice Department website, 90% plus of the people that come here under the claim of asylum are found to be invalid claims. And in that circumstance, would you be willing to say if a person comes here, goes through the asylum process, and it's found that their claim is invalid and they should be removed, that they will be deported?
The Department of Homeland Security is responsible for that issue. They have, because of the large numbers that you're talking about, they, I understand, have a series of priorities. First and most important, deportation of people who are at risk for national security to the United States and for public safety. I think, and lastly, they're trying to deport recent arrivals in order to send the message that you're talking about, that people not come. So
I was with you and Secretary Merrick when we went through this prioritization before. I'm shocked at what he said, because the number of people coming across our border illegally has massively increased, yet the number of deportations has gone way down. So I'm not buying that argument. What I would love to hear you say, as our nation's top law enforcement official, in a way that would instruct the Department of Homeland Security, is that it is illegal to cross the border into this country, that if somebody is found to have failed in their claim for asylum, which 90% of the people do, that they will be deported. That's the message that people in these countries need to hear. Not that, well, don't come, but if you do, there's nothing going to happen to you about it.
It's a misdemeanor to cross the border without the appropriate documentation. That's correct. And the question of rights to apply for asylum is also correct. That's an element of our law. The determination of how to deport and what priorities, that's up to the Department of Homeland Security, and I don't think it useful for me to get into their business with respect to their, any more than I would expect them to get into our business with respect to our law enforcement priorities.
Well, I would hope for a clear determination that when someone is found to be applying for asylum here in an invalid fashion, that they should leave this country and that they will be deported. The fact that you're not able to say that clearly today and send that message to the Department of Homeland Security is shocking.
If they've been adjudicated to not be entitled to asylum, then they should be deported. Yes, I don't think
I appreciate you saying that. I applaud that, because that's the message that needs to be conveyed right now.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't understand the question, but of course, once they've been adjudicated, then of course they should be deported.
I think we need to be
Thank
very
you,
clear about
Senator
that.
Hagerty.
Thank you, Chair.